Well, happy Monday. I got great feedback from the last video, minus the fact that I was half asleep. So I'm more awake during this video. But I had some great feedback from some of you as life group leaders that it really helped you know where I was heading, and then ultimately help the students get to where we wanted to land. And so I'm going to try to make these short, but I think I'm going to include one each week that just gives you, instead of a word overview, gives you a video overview of where we're heading. We are going to be starting in our series this week, in our series this semester on Who's God. We're going to be starting probably several weeks on God is Triune. And that will lead us into some other things. So for instance, this week it will unfold the realization that because God is triune, that He is love. And because He's love, He's triune. And we're going to be tackling the question on what was God doing before existence. And we're going to kind of pair the Father for 2 weeks, and the Son for 2 weeks, and the Spirit for 2 weeks. But within that, we're going to discover some things, such as God is love, God is Father, God is Spirit, right? Some of these things are going to come out as we talk about God being triune. This week, we're going to camp specifically on the Father. And we're going to talk about this passage in John 17:24 where Jesus, as Father, He says, "You loved me before the creation of the world." And we're going to tackle this understanding that we can't simply just start with, because it seems logical here to go Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created. So let's start with, after we understand He's self-existent, then He's also creator. But if we start there, we have problems. And, we're going to talk through a few of those problems. And one, of course, is if His identity is creator or ruler, then He's dependent upon a creation or a place to rule, in other words, to be God, and therefore dependent upon us to be God. And that's not much of a God, right? And so we'll break some of that down. A little bit different from middle school than high school. Probably take just that one and try to flesh it apart for middle school. High school, we'll talk about a few different problems. And then we'll move into understanding that if we start with Him as Father, because Jesus helps us see that, then all of a sudden we get a totally different God. We get a God who has revealed by Jesus as a Father, and has always been a Father, and knows how to be a Father because He's been a Father for all of eternity, even before He created, even before He rules. And so those things are absolutely important. We'll touch just a tad bit, and I think this is important. It's not a specific question in your life groups, but expect it to come up. Well, I'll speak just very briefly about if your father experience has not been good. And I think I said this way back at the beginning of the series, but God is not some pumped up version of your dad. He is Father before any father ever existed. And so therefore, when He says He's Father, it's not like He copies earthly fathers. Earthly fathers should model Him. And so helping understand that just a bit. And then we'll discuss a little bit on 1 John 4:7-9, where Jesus declares God as love. And we'll answer some questions such as, how can God be love? Well, God has always loved His Son. And then how can God be life-giving? Well, He can be life-giving because He's always been life-giving. He has both given creation, but even thinking about His Son, He's given His Son, and that's who He is. He gives life. And then we'll look at a few different verses kind of affirming this love between the Father and Son, and we'll close with this big idea that for all of eternity, God has been Father. For all of eternity, God will continue to be Father. Therefore, God sees you as a son and a daughter. And so what we really want students to grab this week is, as we start Triune, it's real easy to go, well, how do I understand Trinity? The Trinity. And I think you get lost in the weeds and you start using horrible examples such as H2O or eggs or shamrocks, and it just gets weird fast. But if you go, wait a minute, if there's a Son, then there has to be a Father, and if the Father has loved the Son, then that's happened before we were created, which means if He understands how to be a Father before creation, and He is Father to me because of sending Jesus, and you start connecting dots that all of a sudden make the Trinity not necessarily not confusing, but essential. And that's what we want students to see. Of course, for high school, during the Q&A, that's going to come up. How can he be 3 in 1? And I will address that if it comes up in Q&A, but I really want students to grab a hold of how he's been triune before creation and how it fits and makes sense post-creation. So that's where we're heading. I hope this video helps, particularly with high school, because I really just want you kind of fleshing out what are their thoughts, what are their questions after teaching, after Q&A, after reflective worship. There's just some cool pieces that immediately come out that I want you to grab from them, write on a piece of paper, send it to me in text, and go, hey, here's some of the things that they're thinking about even after that teaching. Middle school, hopefully this sets you up and helps you understand the questions you have in your email better. So, love you guys. Can't wait for just some, a kind of a mini series within a big series on God is triune and all we'll learn about God in the process. So, we'll see you Wednesday.